Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Gerritt, your brother in arm, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today's topic: what would you do if you were English? I want to share a little story with you. Back when I was working as a police officer, um, there was a big transition from how you would say how people had always done things to the way they should be done. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. There was an undercover detective at the time. He was working narcotics. And prior to this big shift, literally he would either go out by himself or he would go out with one other person and he would go buy drugs. Yes, I said that right, buy drugs. Undercover officer, that's what you do, is you go out and you buy drugs and guns and stolen cars, all that good stuff to try and catch the criminal, arrest them, and get them off the street. Well, this detective, one afternoon, went to a house to go buy drugs. And he went with another detective. They had no form of communication. They had no anything other than, hey, I'll be right back. And he went down the alley into this house. But what the partner who was waiting outside didn't know was that once this undercover detective had gone into this house, they had locked the door behind him. And he was there to buy some illegal drugs, some meth, and they told him, you're not leaving until you smoke meth. Now, as a police officer, obviously ingesting drugs is a big no-no. So here he finds himself in this predicament where he feels threatened. They have locked the door behind him. He's unsure if they have weapons or not. But he knows that his only way out, according to them, is to smoke meth. And so in his mind, he's like, well, I'm not going to do that. So he pulls out his own weapon, ends up pistol whipping one of the suspects, and manages to make his way outside and leave the residence. And I remember how big of a deal this was, because this was during this time of transition where we had gone from not doing things very safely, i.e., hey man, I'm just going to go buy some drugs, whatever happens, happens, to this much more safe, methodical, and structured approach where we would have an operations plan ahead of time. There would be a cover team. There was some kind of audio communication with the undercover wherever he was, inside of a bar, inside of a house, inside of a car. And we had signals, i.e. arrest signals or distress signal. Like all of these things were in place. Why? Because we're trying to promote safety. I want that detective to go home. Everybody wants the detective to go home. Nobody wants anybody to get injured, hurt, or the otherwise. So this was during this transition. So the fact that he had been locked inside of there, he didn't have any cover, just another detective that had basically given him a ride. The fact that he didn't, that he got locked in there, didn't have a way out, and had to pistol whip his way out of this situation, which could have been worse. You've heard of many instances of undercover detectives and undercover drug deals gone wrong. I've been involved in a few of those. So it happens. So he got stuck in this place, right? And he did what he thought was best at that juncture, in that circumstance, which is pistol whip his way out of it. He was able to get out of there safely. But what happened was this huge uproar within the department. Why are we still doing things this way? Why are we still why are we putting the arrest above the safety of the officer? And again, there started to be this huge shift, especially amongst the SWAT community. I could talk about that. There was a big shift amongst undercovers and the way they do business there. A huge shift because we started to realize that there was a priority. And I talked about this in one of my previous episodes, right? This priority of life. Like, how much are we really going to risk to buy $20 worth of drugs, $40 worth of drugs, $100 worth of drugs? How much risk is it really worth? So if it doesn't make sense, why are we going to do it? In other words, if there's a bad guy inside the house, and bad guy's by himself, and bad guy's got a gun, and bad guy's threatening to shoot himself, what is the exigency or the urgency for us to go inside of that house and get in a confrontation with the bad guy where odds are he's going to shoot us and we're probably going to shoot him, which means multiple people are going to get injured and or killed. So tactics started to change. They had to change. Why? Because if they didn't, there was going to be more injuries and more death. Now, I'm going to pause that right there. And I want you to start thinking about these other areas of your life. These other areas of your life. Like where things have started to change, but you're still holding on to the good old days. You're still holding on to the way things used to be. Now, I'm going to share with you this quote, and it's going to bring it all together. My friend told me this the other day. He said, if we didn't question politics, we'd still be English. Think about that for a minute. If we didn't question politics, we'd still be English. We'd be under the rule of the Queen. We'd be doing the monarchy. We'd be doing things their way. Like, who knows how things would have turned out. But if we didn't question it, right, the men who were alive at that time didn't question it, and if they didn't change it, and they weren't willing to fight for it, then we'd still be English. Now, what does that have to do with an undercover detective, and ultimately, what does it have to do with you? Well, at some point, right, the people who were here in the Americas, in the colonies, realized that this British rule, i.e. what they deemed to be an oppression, wasn't working for them. Paying these heavy taxes, like worshiping somebody on a distant land, like it wasn't working for them. So they're like, hey man, we're out. We're not doing this anymore. It's not working for us. There's a better way to do this. And so they stuck their feet in the ground and they said, no, we're going to do it this better way. And so there was a big fight. You guys all know about it. It's called the American Revolution. So there was a big fight over the fact that they were tired of doing things the way they'd always been done. There was a better way to do them, so they decided to do them. Same thing with this undercover detective. As he was transitioning out of the undercover world, I was transitioning in, but there was this huge debate, and the debate was, hey, we can no longer do things the way that we used to do them. It's unsafe, it's not smart, and there's a better way to do things. We could start leveraging technology. We could start leveraging the fact that we had a tactical advantage because we had so much more knowledge and experience than the average bad guy. Like there were so many things that we could start leveraging. Why weren't we leveraging it? And that's when this shift started to occur. Somebody said, hey, enough is enough. We are no longer going to do business this way. We are no longer going to risk unnecessarily for $10, $20, $50, $100 worth of drugs. And so the shift occurred. And now on to you. At some point, you're going to have to realize that the way that you've been doing business doesn't work anymore. And you've been stubborn and hard-headed, and you keep trying to do things the same way, i.e. the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, and nothing has changed. And at some point, you're going to have to dig your feet in the sand and say enough is enough. There's a better, smarter, more efficient way to do it, and I'm going to do it. A lot of you, I know, you're just like me. You're stubborn. You're egotistical, which means you want to control everything. You want to do everything. But at the same time, you want to scale, you want to make more money, you want to have more time, you want to have more freedom, but you can't have it all. At least not the way that you're currently doing business. So you're going to have to change. You're going to have to fight, mainly against yourself. But if you have a big company, it might be against the entire culture that was or is existing up until that point. Is there a smarter, better, more efficient way, more profitable way to do it? And if there is, why aren't you doing it, right? The question you have to ask yourself. Because ultimately, right, if we didn't question politics, we'd still be English. Every day you have to question, am I doing things the right way? Am I doing them the most effective, the most efficient? Is there a better way? And if there is, are you willing to stick your feet in the sand, say, okay, we're changing directions right now. And this relates to your marriage, believe it or not. For the longest time, my wife and I had a way that we communicated. And it was not very good. In fact, it was very one-sided. My wife would say she wanted something, and I would say, cool, I don't, I want it this way. So I would override her, and we would do things that way. Which led to what? Which led to her not liking me, her not wanting to be around with me. Oh, ultimately, men, what you want is sex. Her not wanting to have sex with me. Like, we can go on and on about the conflict and the friction and other things that were created unnecessarily in this relationship because of my what? My inability to question the way that I was doing things. Was there a smarter, more efficient, more effective way to do things? Yes. Yes, there was. I just wasn't willing to do them yet. Same thing with your body. Like, I get it. When I was in high school, and even after, my parents would take me to the buffet. Why? Because it was the easiest way to feed me. At that time, for $7, it was all you can eat, and I would eat everything. And then 2 hours later, I'd be like, okay, I'm hungry. My mom just started stocking up on oatmeal and bread. Why? Because it was the easiest way to feed me. My siblings as well. I hit about 24 after I got married. I hit about 24, and all of a sudden, the old metabolism hit the brakes, and I started to put on weight. I got to a point where I was 205 pounds. If I showed you a picture, you wouldn't recognize me. And at that point, I said, okay, something has to change. I can't keep doing things this way because it's not working. It's not working. So I had to shift. And see, it doesn't just happen once or twice. It's this constant refinement, course correction, whatever you want to call it. Constant search for a better way of doing things. So the biggest question that you have to ask yourself in your life right now is, are you taking the time necessary to ask these questions? Is there a better way to do marketing? Is there a better way to do sales? Is there a better system out there? Is there a better way to fulfill? Is there a better way to keep in contact with the customers? Is there a better way to treat my body? Is there a better way to communicate with my wife? Like, we constantly have to be asking ourselves this. Because if you're not, guess what? You'd still be English. You have to question the way things are being done in order to find a more effective, efficient, and sometimes profitable way of doing that. Ultimately, that's what we're after. So the question I have for you is, where is it you're stuck right now? Where is it that you're unwilling to look at this? And then the next question is, do you actually have a system? Do you have something in place that will help you on this process? See, I created something based on my police experience called the Weekly Operations Plan. And what happens there? It's literally, you look at your entire life on a weekly basis. Crazy, right? What's working, what's not working? What needs to change? What am I willing to change? What steps am I going to take to make that change happen? Because we can sit here and bitch and moan about our life all day long. And most people do. Don't believe me? Go to social media. Watch TV. Go to the bar. Go to a family reunion. Like, go to any of these places and you're going to find the same thing. People complaining about the way things are. Instead of what? Instead of doing something to change them. So try this. Instead of complaining about your marriage or the way that you communicate with your wife or the lack of sex, do something about it. Instead of complaining about the extra 20 pounds that you have around your waist, do something about it. Instead of complaining about the way that your business isn't working, do something to make it work the way you want it to. Because remember, if we didn't question politics, we'd still be English. All right, that is it for today. Remember, only you can change your life. I can't do it for you. I can merely give you the tools to do it. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always here, always available. You can reach me at Gerritt@warriorguardian.com, or you can reach me on, that's right, social media. I'm out there. All right, as always, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.